What's going on, everybody? Thank you for checking out this video and welcome back. I wanted to build a little bit more consistency into this podcast routine. I wanted to start with a topic today that is important to me, that I feel like I learned later on in my life, later on in my career, late 20s, that really resonates with me today. Okay, it's called working harder versus working smarter. Now, obviously, I'm going to back up 30,000 foot view here for a minute. Obviously, hard work is essential for long-term success. Everyone knows that, and you have to be willing to outwork your competition. Okay, this concept kind of aims at that a little bit deeper, and trying to get at the overworkers or overachievers, where it becomes detrimental. And now, what I mean by that is that eventually you're going to get into a spot where you're working so hard, you're working out, multiple times a day. You're extremely focused and diligent in your routine, and you keep trying to find ways to do more. Well, eventually, time's fixed, so that's going to run out. Okay, if you keep pursuing that, eventually you run out of time. Okay, the way that I've seen high achievers, elite achievers go about this is being way more efficient with their time. It's not that the best players in the world practice 3 times more than kind of the second tier players. It's not really like that. Okay. Now, if you want to kind of zoom back and look at it like high school players versus college players, yeah, you could say that on average, the Division One college player is gonna probably spend more time towards his craft than the average high school player. I think that's obvious to everybody. Okay, what I'm aiming at here is, the top end of your level, how you're going about separating yourself from them. Okay, you have to be willing to look yourself in the mirror first. Okay, you look yourself in the mirror and you have to be willing to put in that amount of work. Okay, every single day, multiple hours a day, multiple facets of your program. Okay, whether that's strength and conditioning, whether that's skill-based work, whether that's nutrition, whether that's your recovery routine, whether that's your study and film routine, whatever that is, it has to be dialed in, consistent every day. You don't get tired of doing it. You don't prioritize other things ahead of it. Okay. Now, once you start doing that and you're sitting in a room surrounded by individuals with talent that is similar to yours, with the willingness to do that same sort of work, then what do you do to separate yourself? And I think that's where this concept, kind of comes in, because eventually, like I've said, your time is fixed. Your energy is what it is on that day. You kind of get into a point where it's diminishing returns, and you're going into an environment where you need to be able to perform at your best. And if I destroy myself on a Monday or Tuesday, bullpen in my case, then Friday or Saturday, is not gonna be peak performance for me. So really being dialed into workload management and some of these things, and finding a way to have more targeted reps, more specific focus, and more of a direct elimination, basically eliminating any of the guesswork within your training, I think could be a huge deal. And that's obviously what we do and preach, in the pitching lab at P3. But this to me is wider than that. This to me is anybody. This is any sport. This is any walk of life, any facet of life. You have to be willing to put in the work first and foremost. That's an obvious. Everyone could sit here and say that. There's a whole different group of people who are willing to do that, but that's a conversation for a different day. For this, you have to be willing to put in the work, okay? And then you have to have the self-awareness to see, as you're going to do that work, you're trying to do that work better as the days and the months and the years go on. You're not trying to do the same work more. You're not taking the same swing 100 more times. You're not, doing the same exercise, for a higher volume or for more weight most of the time. Like you have to continue to educate yourself on working smarter. That's where the smarter piece of it comes into, versus working harder. We're not just taking the same reps, doing them more, doing them harder, doing them with more intensity. We're trying to specifically get dialed into, what I need to do, with my role as an athlete, what I need to do to be my best, and that evolves year over year. A quick story about mine. I think that would look way different between 17-year-old Brett to 23-year-old Brett to 27-year-old Brett. Uh, because of injuries, because of demands, because of maybe competition level. Everything kind of works off of those couple of things there, and you're always adjusting, so you have to find a space to be able to like give yourself some grace in that. You're always learning and growing and adjusting. You don't get to do anything over again, so going into it with the humility to say, willingness to learn what I need to do. And it takes a certain amount of conviction, I think, as an athlete to perform at a high level. But it's a fine line when you're balancing that conviction and humility, as an athlete, because we got to be convicted in what we do. We gotta believe in it. And then once you're convicted in it, there's a lot of people out there that are going to say, well, you should have done this, or maybe think of doing that, and like those are all just distractions in the moment. But then on the other side of that, being humble enough to and willing enough to learn from any sort of person, any sort of age. I think that that's a lot of times where a lot of people can get off, is that they immediately just won't listen to somebody because of maybe where they've been, how old they are, or whatever circumstances, that in the person's mind doesn't warrant respect to them. But that willingness to learn, and those are kind of some of the key concepts, that I've tried to do in my life. But more of my angle, more of my approach here is that what I feel like I've seen, other high level achievers. Obviously, my perspective has been in Major League Baseball, but it's been pretty consistent from what I've seen from sport to sport, from sport to business, different facets of life. Like those are key common traits of what breeds success, no matter what you're doing, right? So a little bit just to recap, I guess that's more of just look yourself in the mirror. Have I done the work necessary consistently for long enough, to be successful in this? And then once you do that, it will kind of put you in a room of other people who are just like you. When you find yourself in that room of other people and you look around and there's a lot of people just like you sitting in that room, and then you're trying to figure out a way to separate yourself from those people, to be high achievers amongst high achievers, then kind of comes in the concept of working smarter versus working harder. And then being able to look yourself back in the mirror after that and figure out, what can I do to separate myself. Most of the time, my recommendations would be going back and looking at your focus during each one of those reps and making each one of them count. Because it's a little easier just to go in and just do the reps. But like, am I doing them right? Am I, sometimes you could video them and see, kind of look back and analyze how you're doing it. A trusted coach's opinion is always great for that as well. But that focus is a big deal. Getting a little bit deeper into the sports science side of things, just how your body performs, how that reflects against other people that have achieved success in your skill set. That's what we do at P3. We take the biomechanics lab and we take the information that we collect in there. We compare your numbers. We compare that to what other high performing throwers do, so you can find where your deficiencies are. So take that into consideration for your kind of skill set there, which you're looking to grow and do. But taking that, analyzing more from an objective data standpoint, because that's also going to give you a very black and white look at what you do versus what other successful people do, and it gives you a very direct line, a very direct development path to say, well, this is what I need to do to get better. When you objectify it like that, it's much more black and white. It is what it is. You can't argue with it. But you can also measure it. So you can put a plan in place to try to do those things, to try to combat those things. Then you come back later and you can test those things again and actually see if the plans that you put in place are making you better. And that's probably one of the biggest things, from an objective approach like that, a very scientific approach to doing those things. And you can do that in anything. We do that in my business now. We're trying to make as many decisions based off of factual data, whether that's projected or whether that's historical, trying to make the best decisions we can, with data supported, just so they're not emotional. Sometimes subjective opinions, we're all human, can become an emotional decision, and we're trying to eliminate that as much as we can. So I appreciate you guys checking out this video. If you liked it, you can like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be trying to build in, like I said, a little bit more consistent of a podcast routine like this. If you have any comments or questions or any topics that you'd like to hear more about in the future, go ahead and drop them in the comments section for me, and I'll see you guys next time.